Like, I don't want to say this. I don't want to say this, but like, this team, like, this team functions better. And I need to be very careful how I say something, because the Indiana...
Notice that pause, the hesitation before he even opens his mouth, the words picked with real care. This isn't a casual take. It's someone bracing for a statement that's about to blow up WNBA social media. And he's right to tread carefully, because what comes next flips everything we thought we knew about the Fever's future with their franchise star.
They fight harder, they play harder. And Caitlin only played 15 minutes last night. I agree. It's nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. If Caitlin Clark's sitting on the bench and Caitlin Clark's there, it is literally when Caitlin is not there. It's like they have it in their head that we need to show we can win without her. And they play with more effort. They play with, I'm not even gonna say they play with more structure. They play harder. They fight more. Like, if they're down 10 points with Caitlin, it's like, fuck it.
Listen closely, because this next line changes everything. When Caitlin Clark steps off the court, the Indiana Fever turn into a completely different team. Not weaker, not stronger, just different. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, this has nothing to do with talent. Nobody's arguing who's the better player here. This is something deeper. Something that should genuinely worry Indiana fans chasing a championship. Because right now, live in front of our eyes, this roster is building an identity without its biggest star in the mix. Let's get into the numbers. Clark logged just 15 minutes in the Fever's last game. 15. And in the time she sat, this team looked unstoppable. Kelsey Mitchell exploded, 29 points, 8 assists, 3 steals, 0 turnovers. Aaliyah Boston controlled the paint. The passing was sharp. The defense was relentless. Indiana clawed back from a double-digit hole and closed the game out strong.
If you have the ball and you're not wide open to shoot, your job is to pass the ball to Aaliyah Boston or Kelsey Mitchell and then let them do it. Ideally, you pass the ball to Kelsey. There's more ball movement because it's just, you move the ball constantly until Kelsey's open and Kelsey does what she does. But like, or Aaliyah does what she does. But man, Ty Harris.
Now here's where things get a little awkward. What Indiana runs when Clark is off the floor isn't some fancy, complicated offense. It's actually dead simple. Move the ball. Keep moving it. Until Kelsey Mitchell or Aaliyah Boston finds an opening. Then get out of the way and let them work. That's the whole plan. No fancy sets. No complicated reads. Just constant motion until one of your best scorers gets free. And here's the kicker. It works. It works really, really well. But pay attention to what's being avoided here. Nobody's saying Clark makes this team worse. That's not it at all. This is about a group that already bought into its own identity, its own rhythm, its own style, long before Clark ever put on a Fever jersey. Don't forget, this core nearly reached the finals last season playing exactly this way. They trust it. They believe in it. And when Clark steps onto the court, that rhythm gets interrupted.
The same page. And it's not a conspiracy thing. It is the fact that it feels like the team has bought into a style of play that doesn't suit Caitlin Clark. It feels like Ty Harris going on a late game tear by herself. She had 7 points at the end of the game in a row by herself. It feels like they've bought into that underdog mentality of like, if you guys have...
Right there. That's the phrase that explains everything. An underdog mentality. This roster feeds off being doubted. They love proving people wrong. They fight harder when their backs are against the wall. That's the identity they built during their 2024 playoff run. That's exactly what Stephanie White is trying to bring back. And here's the hard truth nobody wants to say out loud. You can't stay an underdog once Caitlin Clark is on your team. Think about it. The moment Clark's name is on the roster, expectations show up with her. The media expects deep playoff runs. Fans expect contention. Opponents build entire game plans just to stop her. You're no longer the scrappy team nobody sees coming. You're the target. That's what a generational talent does to a franchise. But this Fever squad plays its best when nobody believes in them. They fight harder. They execute cleaner. They play with an edge when they feel disrespected. And the second Clark sits down, that edge comes right back. Suddenly, we'll prove we're more than just Caitlyn's supporting cast all over again. The problem? You can't build a long-term winning formula around that mindset. Not when you're paying Caitlin Clark supermax money to be the face of your franchise.
That they played tonight that nearly got them to the finals last year. And there's a style of play, and you can't just sub Caitlin Clark into that. Like, you can't play like they did tonight with Caitlin Clark on your team. What would the ramifications to the Fever and WNBA be if Caitlin Clark's made a 12, 16-minute bench player? The ramifications for the Indiana Fever would be pretty much that they have an asset that you could... Is that at the end of the season, because Caitlin's due an epic extension, you would have to salary dump Caitlin. Like, the ramifications for you benching Caitlin means you would have to salary dump Caitlin. And they can't win a chip without Caitlin. I agree. I also don't think they can win a chip with Caitlin right now.
Buckle up, because this comparison is about to blow your mind. Picture the 2004 Detroit Pistons, a team that won a championship with 0 superstars. No egos, just chemistry, lockdown defense, and every single player buying into their role. They knew exactly who they were. Now imagine dropping Allen Iverson into that locker room. Back in 2003-04, Iverson was an MVP-level scorer who needed the ball in his hands every possession. You can't just plug that into the Pistons system. It breaks. The chemistry cracks. The identity gets lost. And that, right there, is exactly what's happening in Indiana. The Fever have found an identity, but here's the twist. It only shows up when Caitlin Clark is off the floor. The second she steps back on, the team seems to forget who they are. Are they Clark's team, running everything through her vision and her passing? Or are they Stephanie White's grind-it-out, defense-first squad that plays with a chip on its shoulder? You can't be both. And right now, Indiana is trying to be both, which means, honestly, they're neither. So here's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. Can this roster win a championship with Caitlin Clark on it? Not because she isn't good enough. Everyone knows she's special. But because this particular roster, under this particular coach, running this particular system, might not be built to unlock what makes her great. And before anyone panics, this isn't saying Clark can't lead a title team. You absolutely can build a championship roster around her. One that plays to her speed, her vision, her shooting. But that's not what Indiana has built. Not yet, anyway. This roster was shaped for a different style. And Stephanie White is coaching to that roster's strengths, not Clark's. Rewind to the 2024 playoffs. The previous coaching staff panicked and abandoned the fast-paced, Clark-centered offense that had carried them through the regular season. They slowed everything down, went back to grinding it out, and got swept. We never actually saw what a team fully built around Clark's game could do in the postseason, because the coaching staff lost faith in it the moment pressure hit. And here's the uncomfortable part. Clark isn't the liability. She simply doesn't fit the system. It is what it is. This team looks like a better unit when Clark isn't on the court. That's not an insult. That's just what the numbers show. Now here's the argument that's going to get people fired up. Maybe Caitlin Clark just doesn't mesh with Stephanie White's coaching philosophy. Not because she can't defend, not because she lacks talent, but because White's system is built on principles that clash with how Clark actually plays basketball. White wants defensive grit, disciplined half-court sets, role players who stay in their lane, and that classic underdog edge. That's her blueprint. That's what's made her successful. Give her 10 seasons, and she'll probably make the playoffs 10 times. Consistently competitive. Maybe even sneak into a finals if the stars align. But championships, that style alone probably doesn't get you there. Meanwhile, Clark is a generational offensive weapon. Someone who thrives in transition, creates advantages with her passing, and needs the ball to truly do damage. Those two approaches simply don't line up. It's nobody's fault. It's just a mismatch between player and system. And here's the thing. You can't say this team got swept while playing Clark's style, because they never actually tried. The coaching staff panicked, said it wouldn't survive the playoffs, and reverted to the exact approach that had them struggling in the first place. They never gave a Clark-built attack a real shot in the postseason. So truthfully, nobody knows what this roster could do if it were actually built around her. If you surround Clark with the right pieces and commit to her style, there's a real path to a title. But White's current system on its own, Probably not enough to get over the hump. What it can do is keep this team relevant year after year. This isn't an argument for benching Clark. Nobody's saying she's the problem. What's being pointed out is a deeper issue, a mismatch between roster, coach, and system that can't just be wished away. The identity this team has built is working. It nearly carried them to the finals in 2024. It's winning games right now. But that identity only clicks when the franchise's best player is on the bench. And you cannot build a long-term winning culture around the idea that your team performs better without its superstar. That's not sustainable. It's not fair to Clark. And it's definitely not a real path to a championship. So what's the fix? Here's an idea that sounds wild at first, but actually holds up once you think it through. It might genuinely benefit both sides to explore a trade. Not because Clark isn't good enough. Not because Indiana doesn't want her. But because this exact combination of roster, coach, and system isn't set up to bring out her full potential or win it all with her leading the charge. Think about it from a football angle for a second. If your team's whole identity is running the ball, controlling the clock, and playing shutdown defense, someone like Patrick Mahomes wouldn't be your ideal quarterback. Not because he isn't elite, but because his entire game is built around throwing constantly and winning shootouts. Same logic applies here. It's a philosophy clash, not a talent gap. Purely from a basketball standpoint, trading Clark could actually help both sides win more. Not from a business angle. Obviously, she sells out arenas everywhere she goes. Not from a media angle. She's the biggest name in the sport right now. But from a pure, who wins the most basketball games perspective, it's worth considering. Stephanie White clearly has a vision, and that vision is producing wins. The players trust it. The results back it up. But that vision doesn't maximize what makes Clark special. And Clark deserves a situation built around her strengths, a coach who trusts her style, a roster that complements her game. We saw glimpses of that magic in 2024 when the offense moved fast, when she was allowed to create, when shooters surrounded her and let her run the show. Then the playoffs came, that approach got scrapped, and a totally different system got installed instead. So at some point, the real question becomes, is this actually the right long-term fit? This current roster suits White's preferred style more than it suits Clark's game. That's not shade toward anyone. That's just roster construction. Defensive-minded grinders who thrive within structure are great pieces for one system. But building around Clark calls for shooters, athletes who love to run, and players who feed off transition basketball. Two completely different blueprints. That's why the Pistons comparison keeps coming back, because it's so fitting. That team had one clear identity. Defense, teamwork, no egos, chip on the shoulder. And it worked. They won it all. But you couldn't have dropped a ball-dominant superstar into that mix without breaking everything that made them special. Indiana is staring down that exact same dilemma right now. Here's what makes this so tricky. Both paths can actually work. You can win with White's system and this current roster. Or you can build an entirely different contender around Clark's talents. What you can't do is try to walk both paths at once. And right now, that's exactly what's happening, which means the franchise isn't fully committed to either direction. Now factor in Clark's contract situation. A Supermax extension is coming. If you're going to pay her that kind of money, you need to build the entire operation around her. A coach who believes in her vision, teammates who amplify her game, a franchise fully invested in Clark ball. But if that commitment isn't there, if the front office trusts White's system more, then you risk wasting her prime years chasing a formula that was never designed for her in the first place. And here's the part that really can't be ignored. If you keep limiting her minutes, if she becomes a bench piece playing 12 to 15 minutes a night, you simply can't justify Supermax money for that role. Something would eventually have to give. That's not drama. That's just how roster economics work. But flip it around. Commit fully to Clark, and you may need to move on from certain pieces that don't fit her style. You might need to rethink the coaching philosophy altogether. You'd need to completely rebuild around pace, spacing, and playmaking. That's a massive organizational leap, and it demands everyone rowing in the same direction. So here's where Indiana stands right now, at a genuine crossroads. Stick with White's system, and this roster likely stays a solid, competitive playoff team year after year, maybe even sneaking deep in a good season. Or take the bigger swing, build a true contender around Clark's talent, and accept the growing pains that come with that kind of overhaul. But they can't have both. Sooner or later, a real choice has to be made. And what we just watched, the explosive scoring, the defensive intensity, the fearless comeback, all without Clark on the floor, that wasn't luck. That's simply who this team becomes when they fully commit to White's system without any hesitation. Tough, scrappy, playing like they've got something to prove every single night. So here's the real question heading into the rest of this season. Does Indiana double down on the identity that's winning right now? Or do they finally build the team this superstar actually deserves? Either way, this story is far from over. If you want to stay ahead of every twist in this saga, hit that subscribe button, drop your prediction in the comments, and stick around, because this Fever storyline is just getting started.